This is a good transition for me about the importance of considering the collective level of the conversion of transition to organic farming or sustainable farming. Because my talk is about the importance of collaborations between farmers, extension agents, wholesalers, and consumers to design sustainable and organic systems. If you see the first line, if you see the second slide, so it's just an outline, a simple outline with, so I will talk about my introduction, some elements of context and theory. Then I will present my 2 case studies, and then my method, and then my results about these 2 case studies. So next slide about, so introduction. So first bullet point. So my talk is more about my personal research program, and it's not really about a specific study. So my research program takes place in what we can call the pesticide lock-in situation. So this expression has been used by Van Leukeren and Barré, so some European authors, and they use this expression to talk about the organizational lock-in between market, policies, extension services, and farmers. And so that is a way to say that market policies, extension services, and farmers have very strong links of interdependency, and that we are in a configuration where the conventional agriculture is dominating the market, the policies, and the extension services, and the organization of farmers. And so they explain how it's really hard to change the socio-technical system because of this locking, because this, for example, the markets are made for conventional products, for example. And this organizational locking, they conduct to, of course, they lead to knowledge locking. So, for example, it means that we have more conventional knowledge about conventional agriculture, conventional farming. So, considering this situation, several studies show the importance. So, next bullet point. So, some studies show the importance of renewing the collaborations between actors of the agri-food socio-technical system and for the development of sustainable and organic agriculture. So my work takes place in this idea of new collaboration between actors of the agri-food system. And so next bullet point. And my work, so it's at the crossing between studies about systems of innovation, alternative food networks, and also about participation and knowledge production. So for this specific talk, I will just present 2 case studies, but of course this work is the result of a reflection of several years. So next slide. So my case studies. So we have 2 case studies. The first one, which is about the peri-urban agri-food network in the Paris area, and the second one, which is an experimental station, which is here in intermediary arena, and I will talk later about what I say when I talk about an intermediary arena. So next slide, first case study. So peri-urban agri-food network in the Paris area. So this story starts with a group of peri-urban residents, and they wanted to promote sustainable farming and preserve farmland. So next bullet point, the several actors were involved for this objective. Some farmers, so the peri-urban residents, which also were consumers, and the local administration. So next bullet point. So it was an issue of, there was an issue of urban planning because this area close to Paris was threatened by urbanization, and so a group of residents decided to create what we call in France a map, so it's a kind of CSA, with one cereal farmer. So because it's a cereal farming area, so of course they asked him to change his practices and what he was producing, because he was a cereal farmer. So they wanted that he produce potatoes, and so that was a big change for him. And they wanted organic potatoes, and so this was the first step. They tried to convince this farmer, and they succeed. And after that, they tried to make a collective work about urban planning for the preservation of farmland. So they decided to work with the local administration to convince them of the importance of save the agriculture in this area. And for that they tried to create a food hub for canteens, for the local canteens, for schools and universities, provisioned by local farmers. And for that, they also convinced the other farmers of this area, who were also cereal farmers, to change their practices to produce vegetables for the schools and the universities. So this is the first case studies with a lot of actors and a lot of change in something like 10 years. And so we start with just an area of cereal crop, and at the end we have a food hub, we have vegetables, and we have consumer and urban residents working with farmers and local administration, and for creating a real agri-food network. So next slide, the second case studies. So the second case studies take place in an experimental station, and it's about the participation of farmers, extension agents, and wholesalers to design organic and sustainable experimentation. So next bullet point. In this case, the actors are some agronomists, extension agents, farmers, wholesalers, and also social scientists. So next bullet point. So the idea with this case studies is it takes place in an experimental station, and the idea of the agronomist, because that was the idea, was to create a step-by-step participative design methodology to produce and evaluate innovative prototypes for cropping systems. But for that, they decided to involve farmers, extension agents, wholesalers to produce prototypes close to their expectation, the expectation of these actors in the local area. So after that, so they organize a workshop to work with these actors, and they do experimentation in station, and then they give the results of the experimentation to the participants. So the extension agents, the farmers, and the wholesalers. And so the idea in this case study is to understand what are the different expectations of these actors, and how they can learn from each other during this experience. So next slide, this is just my method. So I'm working with qualitative and comprehensive approach. So it's mostly interviews with farmers, extension services staff, environmental activists, especially on the first case studies, local administrative staff, also for the first case studies. I also work with observation and participant observation of the interactions between the people during the workshops and also during in-field training or project meetings. And after that, I can also use documentary analysis if some documentary are produced after the workshop or things like that. So next slide, about my results. So just there are 2 bullet points. So first bullet point. So this first slide of results is about the exchanges that we can consider in these 2 case studies, and it's about the exchanges between people having different visions of what is a sustainable system or what is sustainable development. So first bullet point, during the exchanges between these people, we can see kind of juxtaposition of different categories of discourses referring to their different objectives and expectations. So, for instance, so we can have in just 2 sentences the juxtaposition of a technical discourse, and an economic discourse, and an aesthetical discourse. So, for example, here we have this extension agent saying, so it was during a workshop in the experimental station. So it was saying, so everything is feasible, but it has to be feasible for harvesting. So it was mostly considering the technical part of the system and thinking about harvesting. And then we have the farmer saying, so you can do what you want, all what you want, it's not a problem, until 10 species of the vegetables in the same band to sell lots of vegetables. But also because it's beautiful. So we can see here that we have the juxtaposition with technical discourse, but also economic, because you say to sell the vegetable, but also because it's beautiful, and we have an aesthetical discourse here. So during this exchange, and when we put all these different people together, we can see that they have different expectations for the same system, for what is a sustainable system, what is a farming system. Next slide. So during this kind of collaboration, we can see that people have different skills and knowledge. So this is an example from the first case study. So this is a farmer speaking, and he said, 6 years ago, I was not at all interested in sustainable development, organic farming, environmental concern. But yeah, and he said the consumers of the AMAP, so the CSA, were already very involved in these issues, and I had to catch up with them. On their side, they had to understand, on their side, they had to understand that a business does not move like that overnight. So we can see that he showed how the consumers had environmental concern, but he had mostly economic concern. So next slide. We can see that during this exchange we have difference between the visions, between the skills and the knowledge about what is a sustainable system. And during this exchange, we can see how this can be rich and useful before designing what is a sustainable system or an agri-food system. So after that, it's important to consider learning processes. So first bullet point, with this work, I want to consider the importance of creating intermediary arenas. So these intermediary arenas are arenas where people can meet each other and with multiple way and potentially symmetric exchanges. So the idea is to find some places where these people can exchange in a symmetric way, even if we can not always avoid domination process of this kind of thing, but we can try at least. and so next bullet point, I think it's also important to consider the importance of an intermediary place. For example, here in this case studies, an experimental station with physical experimentation where people can exchange, or fields, or a territory, so an area. For example, it was this area in the Paris region to locate the exchange between people, because through this case studies we can see the importance of having a common place for the exchanges. So next slide, as a conclusion, what I wanted to say is that these collaborative initiatives can facilitate change towards sustainable farming through, of course, process of learning, but also compromises between the expectation of various actors. So yes, first bullet point, sorry. So process of learning compromises between the expectation of various actors, but also thinking about feasible changes and not always radical changes, or at least radical changes, but for example after a transition process. So for example, considering decreasing the use of pesticides before a radical change to organic farming, or this kind of thing. So of course so next bullet point, these initiatives involving different kind of people are still niche phenomena and carried on by engaged people, but we can think that they can be aspiring for the development of public policies based, for example, on grassroots initiatives. So thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Just in thinking about what you were discussing, and actually some other things I was just reading yesterday from France, it looks like there's a lot of emphasis on participatory research as an approach, and that's something that's been in international development for many, many years. We had farming systems research and education projects for many, many years. And I'm just wondering, is the new dimension here trying to bring the consumer in? And I'm going to ask also, like Kathleen Dallett here in the audience, Practical Farmers of Iowa is a great example of some of these things. Have they reached out to try to bring the consumer in? Has that been a missing piece? So I'm asking whether that's kind of, for you in France, the new part, or is this whole idea of participatory interaction new?
So, difficult question. So about the consumer, I think we start to involve them in the participatory research, but we just start and try to involve them. It's not clearly obvious. So, for example, in the experimental station, where I work, they want to try to involve consumers to assess the system that they experiment. So that it's pretty new. Yes, and about the development of participatory research, yes, we have a great emphasis on this kind of things, and also about with the development of research about organic farming and sustainable farming, and I would say all this farming system which needs I would say local knowledge, or to be appropriate locally by farmers or by other people, extension agents also.
Any other questions for Aurélie? I think everyone's getting tired. We've been sitting here for a while on this end. Good. Well, thank you, everybody. Aurélie, Stéphane, Matt, thank you for joining us today and sharing your insight.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Je suis Charlie. There's a break just outside the room, some refreshments, and I think we reconvene at 3:30.
Thanks, everybody. And just one note, my name is Matt Jager. I'm here with eOrganic, and we are broadcasting these sessions live. And it's no small feat to do this internationally and having these virtual sessions. So I just want to say thank you for your patience and understanding with our little technical difficulties, especially when you lose internet in the entire building in France just a few minutes before the session starts. So for everyone here on site and for everyone online, thank you for your patience and understanding. And we'll be back for more soon.
Thanks to everyone who's joined us online today for the broadcast from the Organic Agriculture Research Symposium in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Thank you very much for your patience with the live event, and we're glad that we have you with us today.